Matter of fact, I can't make it under a week, Dr. Bell. I'm in San Francisco. It was the first transcontinental telephone conversation. This exchange of greeting marked the opening of transcontinental telephony. The same year saw speech transmitted across the Atlantic by the first radio telephone. Yet both of these miracles of communication developed from a single discovery, the vacuum tube. A discovery which sprung from a chance observation in this workshop of a great inventor at Menlo Park, New Jersey. The story begins in 1883 with trouble, the breaking of the filaments of Thomas A. Edison's incandescent lamp. Observing that the break invariably occurred at the positive end of the filament, Edison reasoned that some unknown negative electrical particles were bombarding this end of the hot wire. Further experiments revealed that the flow of charged particles could be influenced by an extra wire sealed into the bulb of the lamp. Edison recorded this curious phenomenon in his notebook and turned to his many other inventions. It became known as the interesting but useless Edison effect. A generation later, Dr. Lee DeForest added a third element which transformed the Edison effect into a bottle of magic, the first vacuum tube. But it remained for Bell Telephone Laboratories scientists and engineers to perfect and commercialize the vacuum tube. Notable among this host of researchers for Western Electric and the Bell system were Drs. Jewett, Colpitts, Vanderbilt, and the late Dr. Arnold. With their colleagues, they developed the tube into a commercial sensation. And then in 100 specialized forms, they applied it to the facilities of electrical communication. Electrons set free from the atoms of matter that hold them captive. And the world and all it contains are built of atoms. Yet hidden in every single last atom is from 1 to 92 electrons. This wire, like everything else, is composed of atoms. And if microscopes could magnify 10 million times instead of paltry thousands, one of these atoms probably would appear as a tiny elastic sphere. A sphere formed by negatively charged electrons swarming around a massive nucleus of positive electricity. Some substances, especially metals, do not keep their electrons tightly bound to the individual atoms, but allow them to roam around aimlessly between the atoms in the interior of the substance. Such substances are called electrical conductors, because if a battery is connected to the ends of a wire made of such a substance, the free electrons drift along the wire, continuing their aimless motions as they drift. It is this mass movement of electrons that we call an electric current. Whenever the aimless motion of an electron carries it past the surface of the metal into the space outside, it is immediately pulled back by the electric attractions between the electron and the atom community it has left. To become useful in a vacuum tube, however, these electrons must be separated from their atom communities and allowed to move alone. This we do by heating the wire with an electric current. The atoms and electrons become increasingly agitated until some of the electrons rush at the surfaces of the wire at high speed so high they could flash from New York to Detroit in 1 second. At these speeds, electrons are able to break through the electric forces which try to restrain them. They escape to move about in space outside the wire. One of the world's most important. Now, if we set up a nearby target of positive electricity, of the electrons which escape from the surface of the wire, any sort of are pulled directly to the plate. Puts 100 million new tubes to work each year. The space between the wire and plate, we know how they are used in telephony with gyrating air understand their function. Literally billions of transmission apparatus. And to reproduce the human voice across the United States their way through them tubes and like midgets in a subway could require about 150,000 many of the electrons would be pulled into strange atoms on the within earshot. The time and problem is solved by enclosing the wire and plate in a glass bulb. The telephone does it better in a 1/12 of a second. And instead of hog callers, it uses repeater stations, 40 or more, dotting the speech highway, for instance, between New York and San Francisco. Inside are banks of vacuum tube amplifiers, repeater tubes, the telephone engineers call them. Tubes in each repeater station function on every long-distance call, amplifying the voice each way. Here's how it's done. Vibrating under the impact of sound waves, the transmitter diaphragm starts a pulsating movement of electrons along the wire. But as the energy of the electrons is gradually used up in forcing those ahead into like pulsations, the voice current becomes weaker by the mile. Entering the grid in feeble waves, the voice current is nevertheless ample to mold the electrons flowing from the filament into a similar wave pattern. Re-energized without distortion, the voice current now speeds from the plate and tube, arriving at the receiver with just the right strength to reproduce the original sound waves. How much is your voice amplified by these repeater stations between New York and San Francisco?